Hey guys, it's Tanner with Built Not Bought, and today I'm going to show you how to build this beautiful dining table. With all the boards perfectly milled up, they're ready to be glued together. I glued this up in two separate sections. It just made it a little bit easier, and then glued those two together after that first glue up dried. The base of this table is going to be a trapezoid, and for that base, I'm making four separate panels, and these are going to get a compound miter cut on them before I can assemble them into that three-dimensional trapezoid. For the top, now that it's all cured up and ready, I grabbed my circle cutting jig that I made for my router. I've used this 100 times and it works flawlessly to cut out a 60-inch circle out of this beautiful 8-quarter cherry. I'm doing all my layout lines for this compound miter cut, and what a compound miter is when you're cutting two bevels and miters simultaneously. So I'm creating a taper on this base. It's going to get more narrow towards the top, and then I'm also going to cut it at a 45-degree angle on my track saw, and those two miters create that compound cut. Now I've done this glue up a couple times and I bring in the professional to help me out here. And I also want to note that I put dominoes in these miters and I leave one of the four free of dominoes because if you do dominoes in all four corners, it's really hard to pinch it all together. So having that one without is like a relief corner. And this is like a first look for me with this beautiful cherry. I use white oak and walnut 99% of the time, so this was a fun change up. It's absolutely gorgeous. This is white oak for reference, also gorgeous. Check out that table build if you haven't already. Cherry is a wood that I'm going to try and incorporate more often because it looks beautiful, it cuts really nicely, and it smells absolutely amazing. It's hard to describe, but it has a sweetness to it, and it filled the whole shop with a wonderful aroma. Up next, we're making a curved bench to pair with that round dining table, and this is something that I have never done before. So I made a template to try and make my life a little bit easier. And then some dummy forgot to check the height of their bearing on their router. And when I went to flush everything up, I dug right into it. This was a frustrating setback, but luckily it's a fairly easy fix, and I have a lot of cherry offcuts that were left over. So I'm going to patch in a piece that resembles the color and grain pattern as close as possible, and then we're going to hide this mistake to the best of our ability here. These mistakes are kind of embarrassing, but they're bound to happen in the woodworking world. Just don't get too frustrated with yourself. Take your time and make the right fix, and it will be as good as new. One of the negatives to round dining table tops is you get a lot of waste when you're cutting out the corners when creating that circle. So I went and grabbed some of these offcuts, and I'm going to utilize these for the bench legs. When you're using valuable and beautiful hardwoods like this cherry is, I try to minimize my waste as much as possible, not only because you become more profitable when doing this, but I just hate the idea of wasting such a beautiful gift that we get from nature.
Testing out the bench here. The only thing I'm a little worried about is the way that this is curved makes it kind of interesting, and it doesn't really feel like it would be stable just by looking at it. It looks like it could tip backwards because there's nothing in that middle section to kind of hold it. So I'm not sure if I'm going to build a third leg or not. I'll have to do some testing here and just see. If it's sturdy, I'll leave it at 2 because I think it's going to look better with 2 than with 3. But we can't have people like leaning back a little bit and the whole bench tipping over either. So some real scientific testing is about to happen. Test number 1, you get up and you naturally just push this backwards away from the table so you can get out easier, right? It failed test 1. I think we're gonna add a third leg. I don't think the results of our lab testing was a surprise. When you look at it, you can just kind of see, and this is new to me, obviously, like a curved bench. I've never built anything like this before, but there's just nothing on the back portion. Since the legs curve over and the supports are out and forward, there's not much here on the back side, which having this leg right here is definitely going to help, and I think it's also going to add some weight to the lower half of the bench. This top is fairly heavy, 8-quarter cherry, and the more weight we can get lower on the bench, I think the more stable it's going to be. Keep in mind, we're also going to have a stretcher, I believe, that's going to connect all 3 of these legs together. That's going to be the hardest part of this entire build, so I've been procrastinating a little bit. Let's get this third leg built, and then we can worry about the curved stretcher later on.
This is definitely the most technical part of the build. There's just nothing straight or square to measure or reference off of, and we need to interlock all of these legs with that curved stretcher. So I'm doing my best here, and I clamped everything in place, marked all my layout lines, and then I'm going to cut them all by hand. Quickly, while the base was upside down, I threw in some threaded inserts it just made the most sense at this point in the build. These are going to help level, and then you have a felt pad so they don't damage the floor. And with this project completely wrapped up, it's time to apply the Rubio Monocoat, which is the most fulfilling and enjoyable part of the entire build. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you've enjoyed this video so far. It helps me out a ton, and I greatly appreciate it.